So just a couple more basic widgets we want to look at before we move on to the next unit. And in this section, we'll take a look at how you can display an image in your application. So we have this text button here. Let's go ahead and take that text button out and let's replace it with an image. Now, when you add image, you want to do a dot and you'll be given 4 different options. Now, in reality, file and memory, you're going to find you use those very infrequently. The 2 that you're going to use the most are an asset image or a network image. And an asset image would be a local image. So you might have an assets folder with an images subfolder in your application, and you might have an image stored in your application. Now, the nice thing about those is they are very quick. There's almost no loading time because they are part of your application. The downside is that they do add to the size of your app. So you would want to use that for something like a logo or an image that you're going to use frequently, like a placeholder image, but you, of course, would not want to use it for something that you're going to use infrequently. That's where you'd probably want to use a network image and have a network URL from a server that you would get. Downside there, of course, is that it might take a little while to load, you might be offline, and you might not be able to get that network image. So there's some trade-offs to the asset versus network. Now, the process of adding assets to your application is something I want to cover a little bit down the road. So for the purpose of putting an image on the screen and seeing what this widget is all about, I'm going to select network image. And the first thing that the network image is going to want is a string with a URL. And so I'm going to go to a website called Google, and I am going to search images. And you can put any image in here you want. I am just going to search Italy, and I'm just going to pick an image from Father's Travel Guide. And we will copy the image address and we'll just paste it right in there. That'll give me something to put on the screen. Okay, so there is the image. Let's take a look at a couple of properties that are available on the image widget. So there are properties for both height and width in here. So I could say height of 100 and width of 100, and it's not going to square it off. It's just going to take the width and make it 100, and the height is going to be 100, but it's not going to stretch the image. So the actual height is actually a little higher than the image there. So I've created basically a box of 100 by 100, and the image is kind of sitting in the middle of it. And there is an alignment property you can use with alignment dot. So I could do top center, and that would move it to the top of the box, and there is actually some space down here. But all of this here, the height, the width, the alignment, generally you're not going to use that on an image. What you're going to do is have the image inside of a layout widget, which we're going to cover in the next unit. So be aware of these properties, that they may be helpful to you, but you're probably going to find that you don't actually want to be setting height and width and alignment and all of that on the image. In most cases, you're going to want to use a layout widget for that. One thing that you may do quite a bit, though, is you may just get that back to its full size. You may want to affect the opacity or the darkness of the image because you may want some text on top to stand out. You may want it to be kind of a background type image, just a faint suggestion of an image and not necessarily be all that dominant. So the way you can go about that is you can add a color. So I'm going to say, let's give this a color of colors.black. And you can see that just totally wipes the whole thing out. So that needs to be partnered with a color blend mode. And that's going to take a helper widget of blend mode. And then I can do a dot and check all of the different values that are available to me. And so if I'm using something like black, we're going to say I want to darken it because I might want to put some white text on it. So we can say darken. And we can still see that we just have black. And that's because our black is just a full-on dark black. But what you can do on the colors property is you can come after the color and add opacity by putting with opacity. And then inside the parentheses, it will take a value from 0 to 1. And so if I do 1, that is full black, and that keeps us where we are. But if I were to say 0.5, now we can see I have an image that is in a darken mode with black, but it has an opacity of about 50%, and so you can sort of see through it. And if I were to say 0.0, then we're back to the original image we had, 0.2, etc. So you can dial up the level of darkness that you need to in order to get your font to stand out, if that's what you're trying to do. And if you're going the other way, say you want to actually lighten the image, you want to make it really bright or blend right into the background and into the opacity of the white background, well then in that case black wouldn't be a good choice because we want to lighten with white. And so if we say just white, we should get a white block. There we go. But if we start adding an opacity and we say 0.5, then it's fading into the background. And the more opacity we add, the lighter and lighter it's going to get. And it's going to go the other way if we add less opacity back more to the original image. All right, so we will work much more with images once we start to actually build some mock apps. But for this section, I just wanted to introduce how you can put one on the screen and how you can also add some opacity or darkness if you wish. All right, so in our next section, we're going to take a look at our last basic widget, which is the icon widget.